I didn't believe the results at first. The paper trembled in my hands like it was alive. Like it knew what it was about to destroy. 99.9% probability. It meant one thing. My daughter, my little girl, was his. For a long time, I just stared at those black letters, burning through me like a confession I didn't mean to make. You'd think I'd scream or cry or call someone. Didn't. I just sat there on the cold bathroom floor, staring at the name I'd tried to forget, Adrian Moretti. The sound of my daughter humming in the next room drifted through the air. Her voice soft, innocent, twisted something inside me, because now that I knew, I could hear him in her laughter. The way she tilted her head when she was thinking, the way she frowned when she was mad, it was all him. The man I had run from, the man I had loved, the man I had sworn never to let near my child. I folded the paper, shoved it into the back of the drawer, and told myself it didn't change anything. But deep down, I knew everything had already changed. Because once you open the door to the past, it doesn't close again. Shift in tone, nostalgic, slower, haunted. When I met Adrian, I didn't know who he really was. He told me he ran a business. That was the word he used, business. He never said what kind. He just smiled that quiet, dangerous smile and changed the subject. And I let him. Because at 22, I was naive enough to believe that love could rewrite a man's story. He was magnetic in a way that scared me. The kind of man who could silence a room without saying a word. There was something behind his eyes, something cold, and something kind, both fighting for control. When he touched me, I felt safe. When he disappeared for days, I told myself not to ask questions. Love makes you stupid like that. One night, I woke up to the sound of his voice downstairs. He wasn't angry, just quiet. Too quiet. And when I heard another man's voice beg for mercy, I knew what I'd fallen into. The next morning, he held me like nothing had happened. And I pretended not to know. Because if I acknowledged the darkness in him, I'd have to face the one growing in me. When I found out I was pregnant, I didn't tell him. I didn't even think. I just packed a bag, left New York before sunrise, and never looked back. I told myself it was for my child to keep her safe. But maybe it was also to save the part of me that still believed in light. I built a small, quiet life. A job at the bookstore. A little apartment with peeling paint and second-hand furniture. It wasn't much, but it was ours. For 4 years, I convinced myself that Adrian Moretti was just a name from another lifetime. A scar I could live with. A ghost that would never find me. Until the day that test arrived. Shift. Voice grows tense, breathless sound of silence before a storm. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the floor made me flinch. Every sound outside felt like a warning. I checked the locks twice. 3 times. My mind replayed memories. I didn't want his voice in the dark. The way he said my name like it meant something sacred. I told myself he'd never know. That even if he somehow found out, he'd stay away. But deep down, I knew better. Adrian Moretti never left anything unfinished. Not business. Not love. Not me. The next morning, I was making breakfast for Lily, pancakes. Her favorite when it happened. 3 knocks. Sharp. Deliberate. Final. I froze. For a moment, I thought my heart stopped too. It couldn't be him. It couldn't. Nobody knew where we lived. Lily looked up from her coloring book, a crayon in her hand. "Mummy, someone's at the door," she said. Her voice was bright, unaware, beautiful. And it felt like a countdown. I wiped my hands on a towel, every step toward that door feeling like walking toward a cliff. The world outside was quiet, too quiet. I reached for the handle, my fingers trembling, and opened it. He filled the doorway like he always used to fill a room, tall, composed, eyes that could burn or freeze depending on what you said next. A black shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms. A gold chain I used to trace with my fingers. Time hadn't softened him. It had sharpened him. His gaze landed on me, and for a second, everything in me screamed to run. But I couldn't. He saw Pia. My name and his voice still hit like a wound reopening. Low. Controlled. Familiar. He swallowed hard. "You shouldn't be here." He tilted his head slightly, the faintest ghost of a smile tugging at his lips. "You shouldn't have kept her from me." My stomach twisted. He knew. Of course he knew. I tried to close the door, but his hand caught it firm, steady, patient. He didn't push. He never had to. Move, I said. But it came out more like a plea than a command. He studied me quietly, eyes searching my face, like he was trying to find the girl he once knew. Finally, he said it. You kept my daughter from me. The words landed harder than a shout. I wanted to deny it, to scream that I had kept her safe. But the truth sat heavy in my chest. I couldn't protect Lily from the man standing in front of me, not from what he made me feel. He stepped forward. Just one step. But it was enough. The air changed thicker, charged, electric. He scanned the apartment, the worn furniture, the toys scattered across the rug, the tiny pink backpack by the couch. When his eyes landed on it, something in his face shifted, softer, sadder. And that was worse than anger. Her name's Lily, he said quietly. Lake had already claimed her. I shook my head. She doesn't know who you are. He looked past me then, toward the hallway. Mummy? Lily's small voice pierced the silence. She peeked out from behind the corner, curls falling over her forehead. Who's that man? Adrian froze. For the first time since I'd met him, he looked completely unguarded. His throat moved as he swallowed. And when he finally spoke, his voice was barely a whisper. My daughter. Time seemed to stop. My lungs forgot how to work. I wanted to scream, to deny him, to throw him out of my home and lock every door twice. But when I looked at him, really looked, I saw something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not the kind men like him show when facing guns or death, but the kind that only comes when you realize you've already lost something once, and you can't bear to lose it again. I told Lily to go to her room. She hesitated, confused, then ran down the hall, her little footsteps echoing in the silence. When she was gone, I finally spoke. How did you find us? He didn't answer right away, just looked around the room again, slower this time, like he was memorizing it. I never stopped looking, he said. Then, quieter almost himself, I didn't know until now. You're lying, I said. You always lie. He took another step closer. If I'd known, Sophia, you really think I would have let you disappear? I glared at him, voice shaking. I think you would have used her. Like everyone else you touch. His expression darkened, not angry, more like wounded pride. You think that little of me? I think you live in a world that doesn't care about children, I whispered. He paused, then said, And you think yours does? You think hiding her here, working double shifts, pretending you're invisible, that's safety? My voice cracked. At least she's alive. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was suffocating. He ran a hand through his hair, exhaled sharply, and finally said, There's a target on both of you now. I froze. What are you talking about? His eyes met mine, calm and cold. Someone's been watching you. They sent me the same file you got. The test didn't just find me, Sophia, it exposed her. I stared at him, unable to breathe. You're lying, I whispered again. But this time, even I didn't believe it. He pulled his phone from his pocket and showed me a photo. Grainy, distant, taken through a window. Lily, my daughter, playing in the park. My blood ran cold. Who? Doesn't matter who, he said softly. They know, and they'll use her to reach me. The room spun. I gripped the counter to keep from falling. What do you want from me? He looked at me then, really looked. Not from you, he said. For you. I laughed, but it came out bitter and broken. You can't protect us. You destroy everything you touch. He didn't argue, didn't move, just stood there, the weight of his silence pressing against me until it hurt. Then, quietly, he said, Pack a bag. I shook my head. No. His voice hardened, low and steady. Then I'll take her. Because the next time they come, it won't be with a knock. The air left my lungs. You wouldn't. His eyes didn't flinch. You know I would. I stared at him. The man I'd once loved, the man who could make the world move without raising his voice. My fingers trembled. My chest ached. You can't just walk back into my life and... He stepped closer, close enough that I could feel the heat of him, smell the faint trace of smoke and cologne. I never stopped looking for you, he said, voice rough. For her. You think I wanted to find out I had a daughter from a piece of paper instead of from you? I wanted to hate him. I wanted to scream. But before I could say anything, Lily's small voice came from down the hall. "Mommy, I'm scared." That broke me. I turned away, dropped to my knees, and pulled her into my arms. She clung to me, tiny fingers gripping my shirt. I felt Adrian's gaze on us heavy, unreadable. When I finally looked up, his voice was steady again. "We leave tonight." And for the first time in years, I didn't have an argument left. The silence after he said it was heavy, like the air itself didn't want to move. "We leave tonight," he told me. And somehow, I already knew he meant it. He stood there in my kitchen, the same man I'd once watched slip out of silk sheets and into gunfire, now surrounded by cereal boxes and my daughter's crayon drawings. It didn't make sense. None of it did. I wanted to scream at him, to tell him to leave and never come back. But the words caught somewhere between fear and longing. He was danger and comfort in the same breath. And the part of me that had once loved him hated how much it still recognized him. "Why now?" I finally whispered. "Why come here after all this time?" He didn't answer right away. Instead, he pulled a folded envelope from his jacket and slid it across the counter. Inside were photographs, grainy, distant. Lily on the swings at the park. Lily walking to preschool. Lily asleep in the back seat of my car. My stomach twisted as the images blurred through my tears. "When were these taken?" "Last week," he said. His voice was flat, but there was something under it, anger, maybe, or guilt. "I got them the same day you did that test. Someone wanted me to know." I looked up at him, trembling. "Know what?" "That they can reach her. Reach you." He paused, eyes locking with mine. "The test didn't just find me, Sophia. It exposed her." The words sank like ice water in my veins. It wasn't paranoia. It was proof. All the logs, all the hiding, all the pretending that I'd built a quiet life far from him, it was gone. We were already seen. I pushed the photos away and took a step back. "This isn't happening." "It is," he said quietly. "And the only thing we can do now is survive it." "We?" I almost laughed. "There's no we, Adrian. You don't get to say we." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration breaking through the calm. "You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to find out I had a daughter through a threat?" His voice cracked, sharp with something like pain. "I should have been there, Sophia. I should have known." I shook my head. "You should have stayed gone." He stared at me for a long moment, jaw tight, eyes unreadable. Then he said the thing that broke what was left of my resistance. "They sent the same photos to me that they sent to you. That means they're close. That means tonight, not tomorrow, not next week, tonight is the last chance we have to move before they do." He took a slow step forward, lowering his voice. "Pack a bag. Only what you need." I shook my head, tears threatening. "No, I'm not letting you drag us back into that world. Not after everything I've done to keep her out of it." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't have to. His calm was worse than anger. "Then you'll be burying her next," he said softly. I slapped him. It wasn't even a choice. It just happened. The sound cracked through the room. His head turned slightly, but he didn't react. He just looked at me, not furious, not smug, just heartbreakingly human. "I'm not your enemy, Sophia," he said. "You don't get to say that." My voice broke. "You don't get to come back after 4 years and act like you care." He didn't move, didn't argue. He just looked at me with those dark eyes that once made me forget who I was. "I never stopped caring," he whispered, and damn him, I believed it. Lily's voice cut through the tension like a bell. "Mummy?" She stood in the hallway, clutching her stuffed bunny, eyes wide and watery. "Mummy, I'm scared." Every ounce of fight in me crumbled. I crouched down, pulled her into my arms, kissed the top of her head. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, though it wasn't. "It's okay." When I looked up again, Adrian was still there, silent, waiting. And for once, I didn't see the Mafia boss, or the man who'd haunted my nightmares. I saw the man who used to buy me coffee at sunrise, the man who once made me believe I could be loved in the middle of chaos, the man who had Lily's same eyes. I nodded, barely. "Fine. We go." His shoulders dropped, like he'd been holding his breath for years. "Thank you." I wanted to tell him not to thank me, that this wasn't forgiveness, that this was survival. But the words didn't come. We left before the sun went down. The air outside was cool, the streetlights flickering like nervous pulses. Lily fell asleep in my arms before we even reached the car. Adrian opened the passenger door for me. Silent. Unreadable. The old him would have made a comment, a smirk, a tease. This version of him didn't. He was quieter, harder, more dangerous, but somehow more real. The city blurred past in streaks of gold and shadow. Neither of us spoke for miles. The hum of the tires filled the silence, like a heartbeat we couldn't ignore. Finally, I said, "You could at least tell me where we're going." He didn't look at me. "Safer, if you don't know yet." I laughed under my breath. Bitter. That's not how parenting works. His jaw tightened, but his tone stayed calm. "You had 4 years of keeping her safe your way. Let me try mine." I wanted to tell him no. I wanted to tell him that he didn't know her, that she hated green beans and loved bedtime stories about mermaids. But then, I remembered those photos. The ones that showed someone had been close enough to touch her. And I couldn't argue anymore. The night stretched on, like a road with no end. The city lights disappeared behind us, replaced by endless trees, and the hush of midnight. Lily slept in the back seat, her small hand wrapped around her bunny. Adrian drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on his thigh, steady, focused, unshakable. It was strange, the way silence could feel like safety and danger at the same time. Every few miles, he'd glance at the mirrors, watching the shadows behind us. Once, headlights appeared just for a second, and I saw his shoulders tense. But then they faded, and he didn't speak. I leaned my head against the window, the glass cool against my skin. "Do you ever regret it?" I asked quietly. "Regret what?" "Being who you are." He didn't answer right away. Finally, he said, "Every day I remember what it cost me. You, her, us." He didn't respond. Because part of me wanted to believe him, and part of me was terrified that I already did. By the time the car stopped, the sky was turning pale grey. The air smelled like rain and pine. A small house sat at the edge of the woods, the kind of place that looked forgotten on purpose. Lily stirred in the back seat, blinking sleepily. "Mommy, where are we?" "Somewhere safe," Adrian said softly. She nodded and fell back asleep, too tired to question him. He carried her inside. I followed, still half in disbelief that I was here with him again. He laid her down on the bed and tucked the blanket around her shoulders. His hand lingered on her hair, gentle in a way that made my throat ache. For a man who once ruled empires, he looked completely undone by a child's curls and quiet breathing. When he finally turned toward me, I couldn't hold it in anymore. "You can't just walk back into our lives like this," I whispered. He leaned against the doorway, eyes dark and tired. "I didn't walk back in," he said softly. "I fought my way here." I shook my head. "You think this is redemption? You think showing up and saving us makes up for everything you did?" He sighed, and for a moment, he looked older. "I'm not trying to rewrite the past," he said. "I'm trying to keep you both in the future." I didn't have an answer for that. Because the truth was, I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that a man like Adrian Moretti could be both danger and safety. That he could burn the world down and still be gentle with what he loved. We stood there in silence for a long time, two people who used to know each other's hearts, and now barely recognized each other's faces. But there was something between us, still a current, that never stopped humming, no matter how much time had passed. Finally, he said, "Get some rest. We'll figure out what comes next in the morning." I nodded but didn't move. When he walked past me, our shoulders brushed, and it felt like fire meeting ice. He hesitated, just for a heartbeat, before stepping away. And in that moment, I realized the thing that terrified me most wasn't the danger outside. It was the danger of feeling something for him again. Because once upon a time, I'd loved a man who could destroy worlds. And here he was trying to save mine. The storm didn't start with thunder. It started with silence. That kind of silence that presses against your ribs, that makes you feel something terrible is about to happen. It was past midnight. The air felt heavier than it should. I was sitting by the window, watching the trees sway in the wind, when the headlights appeared through the darkness. 2 cars. No plates. No sound except the low growl of engines that didn't belong in a place like this. Adrian was already on his feet before I could speak. His voice was calm. Too calm. "Get her," he said. I didn't ask who he meant. I ran for Lily's room, heart hammering in my throat. She stirred as I lifted her from the bed. Mommy. Shh. It's okay, baby. Keep your eyes closed. But it wasn't okay. Nothing about this was okay. When I turned back, Adrian was at the window, gun in hand. For a second, I saw the man he used to be, the one I'd spent years trying to forget. Except this time, I wasn't afraid of him. I was afraid of losing him. The first shot shattered the glass. Then another. The sound was deafening bullets splitting the quiet like lightning through the dark. Adrian pulled me down, his arm shielding me and Lily both. Glass rained around us, and I felt the heat of his breath against my ear. Stay low, he whispered. I could hear his heartbeat hard, steady, controlled. He moved like a shadow, like he'd done this 1,000 times before. And maybe he had. The front door burst open. Shouts. Footsteps. Chaos. Adrian fired twice precise. Efficient. The men fell before I even saw their faces. Lily cried into my shoulder. Small hands clinging to me. Mummy, I'm scared. I know. I whispered. I know. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure who I was trying to comfort her, or myself. Adrian turned to me, eyes blazing in the flickering light. They won't stop, he said. Not until I end it. I grabbed his arm. You can't go out there. He looked down at me, blood staining the sleeve of his shirt. It's already out there, he said. For a moment, everything inside me broke open. All the anger, all the love, all the fear I'd buried for 4 years came pouring out. You said you'd keep us safe, he cried. I am, he said. But to do that, I have to finish this. No, I whispered. You don't get to leave again. He touched my cheek, fingers trembling. I thought love was my weakness, he said softly. I was wrong. It's the only thing keeping me alive. Then he turned, grabbed the gun from the counter, and stepped out into the storm. The door slammed behind him, and suddenly, the house felt like a tomb. I held Lily close, rocking her back and forth as the echoes of gunfire drifted through the trees. Each shot was a heartbeat, a countdown, until there were none. Then, only silence. 24-0. 27-0 vertical bar scene 8. The return. Days passed like ghosts. The sun rose and set, but time didn't move. He didn't sleep. Every creak of the floor made me flinch. Every sound outside made my pulse spike. Lily asked for him once, just once. Is Daddy still fighting the bad guys? She whispered before falling asleep. I didn't answer, because I didn't know. On the third night, the knock came. 3 soft raps just like before. The sound I'd feared. The sound I'd prayed for. My hands shook as I opened the door. He stood there, barely upright. His shirt was torn, his face cut, blood dried along his temple, but his eyes, those dark, steady eyes, were alive. You're hurt, I said. He smiled faintly, the corner of his mouth twitching. You should see the other guy. It wasn't funny, but I laughed anyway, the kind of laugh that's half sob, half relief. Because against every reason, he'd come back. He walked past me, slow, careful, as if each step cost him something. Then he stopped by the bed where Lily slept, curls spread across the pillow. He looked at her like a man seeing sunlight after years underground. She stirred, blinked, and smiled when she saw him. You came back, she said softly. He brushed his fingers through her hair. I told you I would. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe, because in that moment, I saw it, the man who used to terrify the world, now undone by a little girl's voice. He turned to me, leaning against the wall for balance. It's over, he said quietly. I'm done with that world. I wanted to ask what over meant, who was gone, what it cost. But he didn't. Some things you don't ask when you're finally allowed to hope. Lily yawned and drifted back to sleep, her tiny hand clutching his. And for the first time in what felt like years, I let myself breathe. 27-0. 30-0. Scene 9. A new life. We left the cabin 2 weeks later. No words, no goodbyes. Just a quiet understanding that the war was behind us. And somehow, we'd survived it. We found a small coastal town hours away. The kind of place where no one asks questions. Where the ocean drowns out everything you don't want to remember. The house was old but warm, with faded blue shutters, and a porch that creaked when you stepped on it. Adrian spent his days fixing it piece by piece, like he was rebuilding himself. Nail by nail, board by board. Sometimes I'd watch him from the kitchen window, sleeves rolled up, sunlight catching on his scars. A Mafia king pretending to be a carpenter. But maybe that's what redemption looks like: quiet work and second chances. Lily loved it there. She'd run barefoot through the yard, her laughter echoing across the grass. Every time she called, "Daddy, come catch me," he'd drop everything and chase her, pretending to lose just to make her giggle. At night, after she was asleep, we'd sit on the porch. The air smelled like salt and rain. The stars hung low, close enough to touch. He'd look out at the ocean and say things like, "She has your stubbornness," or, "You used to hum in your sleep." And every time, it broke something inside me, the soft kind of breaking that feels like healing. We didn't talk about the past. We didn't need to. It lived in our silences, not haunting us, just reminding us where we'd come from. Sometimes I'd wake in the middle of the night, heart racing, expecting gunfire. But all I'd hear was the sound of waves and his slow breathing beside me. And I'd realize this was what peace felt like: fragile, imperfect, real. He still wore those black shirts with the top buttons undone. Still made coffee too strong. Still looked at me like he was memorizing the way I existed. But now, when he smiled, it wasn't the smile of a man who wanted to own the world. It was the smile of someone who'd finally stopped running from it. One evening, as the sun dipped low and turned the sea gold, he took my hand. "You know," he said quietly, "I thought I'd lost everything that mattered." "And now?" I asked. He looked at me, eyes soft. "Now I know I never really had anything until you." I didn't answer. I just leaned into him, let the wind tangle my hair, and listened to the sound of Lily's laughter drifting through the window. And I thought maybe this is what survival looks like. Not perfection. Not peace that never breaks. Just choosing to stay. Even when every part of you once wanted to run. He came for his family, and somehow, in the wreckage of everything he'd been, he stayed. I used to think love was fire. Now I know it's what's left after the flames. If this story stayed with you, don't just leave it here. Subscribe for more whispered confessions, more love born from danger, more nights where the truth feels too close to breathe. Because every story I tell hides a heartbeat. Maybe this one was yours.